Happy Monday, peoples. How was your weekend? Hopefully, epic and enjoyable. Monday seems to have this bad reputation for being super high pressure and full of anxiety for a lot of folks returning to work after a couple days off, and it's almost as if the pressure was a bad thing or something to avoid. But, I mean, honestly, without pressure, we would never have espresso. Or the debate around it's espresso with an S or espresso with an X. The word espresso is Italian in its roots. Espresso itself is made by forcing super hot water through fine ground coffee beans with incredibly high pressure, which expresses a very concentrated brew into the demi-tasse cup. Demi-tasse, that little cup at the bottom of your espresso machine, is actually a French word that means half cup, but not the American standard half cup because that would be too easy and convenient. Instead, it's a small little cup that holds between 60 and 90 milliliters of the coffee. To make matters more confusing, if you're in France, you actually should use the word espresso if you don't want to stand out like a sore thumb. But basically everywhere else, it's probably best to stick with the S and go with espresso. What do we learn from all that? Probably not much, other than both words are nouns. But what I do know is no matter where or how you want to pronounce it, the best place to get your espresso is at Primo Espresso. Not only do they have the best coffee in town, but their new thermal mugs will keep your drink of choice hot. Hot for hours on end. Plus, they look really cool. So up your game on your coffee cup and head over to PrimoEspressoTigard.com or at PrimoEspressoTigard on the gram. It's convenient this week's coffee fact revolves around pressure and labels because that is a really big component of our conversation. I had the opportunity to sit down and talk all things mental and physical health related with Julia Lawson. She is the author of Grief Girl Boss, and she was 39 and a mother of two very little littles when her husband died of brain cancer. In less than 6 months, she went from happily married with her life partner, raising two adorable munchkins, to instantly widowed, working full-time, tackling a massive wage gap, somewhere in there trying to keep herself together in the midst of all that disaster. As we talk about, it wasn't always pretty or neat. But in the last 2 years since Peter died, she's rebuilt herself from all those shattered little pieces into what we all agree is the best version of herself to date, living with, or actually I guess I should say empowered by, his memory. The kindness and compassion she has for everyone in her world is simply remarkable when it would just be so much easier to be sad and angry all the time. She is truly, truly inspirational. Joining her is her trainer, friend, and all-around Team Julia hype man, Troy Harvey. The best way to describe Troy, and we've been friends for over a decade, is if Disney ever made a movie about the greatest coach or trainer to walk the face of the planet, it would be Troy. His enthusiasm for life in general, but especially his wife and daughter and extended fitness family, is literally something out of a classic movie. It's impossible to quantify his energy in my own words, and I know this episode barely scratches the surface of who he is, but I think you'll hear and see if you're watching why he was the perfect guy in the right place at the right time to team up with Julia. But you know, I'm going to shut up and get out of the way here. It's time to get to it. Fitness Nomads Season 2, Episode 6 with Julia Lawson and Troy Harvey starts right now.
I'm not from here. Just
okay. So actually, hold on.
1991.
Well, hold on. Back that up. When did you immigrate to the U.S.?
2000.
Okay. So from Germany,
All right.
Yeah.
straight from
The fatherland.
the fatherland
Yes.
to Jersey.
No, Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Fort Lauderdale. Okay,
Fort
so you went
Lauderdale.
from Germany, like one of the arguably highest level academic engineering, all the smart, super crazy smart people, to like the fundamental retirement community of the United States of America.
Where
the
Birdcage
backstory
is
is
made.
great. The company that offered me the job that I worked for, I finished college, they offered me a transfer there, is because the owners had an apartment in Fort Lauderdale because they wanted to retire there. So they had
Okay.
a small subsidiary of the German company with maybe 10 people in Florida because they wanted to live there.
Baller move.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to do it for a year.
That's
Did it
awesome.
for 3, and we got acquired by a Silicon Valley company.
Okay.
Same thing, like, hey, we fired your boss. Do you want to move to California? I'm like, I'll do it for a year.
We fired your boss,
7
but we'd like to
years
present
later.
you this opportunity to not be unemployed.
What
do you think?
Yeah. Would you like a promotion out to the West Coast? Like, I'll do it for a year.
So Germany to Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, I know. You
To
say-
Cali.
To Cali.
Oh my
typical
goodness.
story.
The typical girl moved west story.
It's a typical girl
Fatherland
left
to
small
the East Coast
town.
to the West Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fatherland to Retirementville to let's go to Cali, which is like couldn't be any. Well, obviously, we've seen in the last 2 years, couldn't be any more different than the state of Florida.
No kidding.
Yeah. All right, I'm terrible at this. See, okay, my other friend Paul, who does a lot of the podcast stuff with me and also tells me what I forget, which is awesome because you need to have that one friend. I'm terrible at doing introductions because like I am here and I know everybody. But for Paul, this entire season, I'm dedicating all the introductions to Paul. So,
Hi, Paul.
hi, Paul. Yeah, hi, Paul. Who are you and what are we doing?
I am Julia Lawson. I am a 42-year-old single mom, live in Oregon. I finished writing a book around how to rebuild a life of joy after loss. We lost my husband 2 years ago to brain cancer, and at the time my kids were 1 and 3. So I wrote this how-to guide and really help others regain their life based on my experience the last couple of years, and really help others to get to the point of contentment, joy, thriving, building a life again once you process grief and how to process grief. And then more nuanced than that, you know, it's not just grief, but you're a single parent, you're a widowed parent, you have a financial gap. So like the whole navigating grief is one thing, but there's so many more aspects to it.
That's big.
That was a mouthful.
That was a mouthful. Before I get into that mouthful, which you're welcome to take a snack there. The other guy on the end of the table here, Troy boy. Hi, Troy.
Hello.
What? How about?
Hi, Paul.
Yeah, hi, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, Lindsay. Hi, BFJ. Give us a little rundown on how you're in the mix here too, because again, I know, but everybody else
Sure.
who's watching or
Sure.
listening doesn't.
Well, I am Troy Harvey. I am 40 years old, years young, years thriving this year. I've been a trainer since I could walk, since I was in diapers, I think. And I work here currently at Bay Club. Used to be Club Sport, used to be Sports Nation, used to be Costco.
Used to be a Costco.
Where I used to eat Polish
This
hot
used to be a
dogs
Costco.
It used to be
every
Costco.
Sunday.
No joke.
Every
Sunday.
Sunday, directly
I had no
north
idea.
of me.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
Yeah, but if you look at it, you're like,
It
oh,
makes so much sense.
it makes
now.
total
This
sense.
was
It
Yeah.
makes so
Costco.
much sense.
Yep. So I've been a trainer forever and a day. I met this lovely young lady next to me 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago, a little more than 2 years ago. Who knows? It seems like it's been forever. I feel like I've known her forever. Met her on a 100 birthday challenge that I was giving to my hockey players who are 14, 16, and 17. And here comes in this 40-year-old saying, "Shh, I got that. Let's go, boys. Where's your toughness?" And she did it, and she goes, I'm never doing that again. But thank you for the challenge. And then the next time I saw her was maybe a month later. And I said, "Hey, how are you? I haven't seen you. What's going on?" And then boom, we started working out together. In that time frame, we have learned a lot about this lady, what she's going through. And the thing I've learned as a trainer is it's not about lifting up a weight, picking it up over your head or pushing it away from you or pulling it towards you. It's about relationships. At least for me. I don't know how to just say, "Hey, 10 reps, go. 1, 2.
well, you do know how to do that, but
Well, kind of.
You do that very
Sort
well,
of.
by the way,
Sort
just
of.
to be clear.
you do it with a lot more flair,
It is
though.
more about diving in and digging down and delving into the person that is across from me or across the room from me and saying, "Hey, why are you here? What makes you tick? And why do I need to help you? And why do you need me to help you?" So there I am. Body by Troy. Love what I do. Wouldn't change it for the world. And the world is her oyster. And that's why we're here. We're promoting Grief Girl Boss, a.k.a. GGB.
I like it. That's a that's a
okay?
good formal
Is that
intro,
okay,
right?
Paul?
Paul's gonna approve. I
Paul,
know
thank
Paul's
you.
gonna approve, right? I got to do it for Paul because
You
like
should have gone first.
Why? Because it was
not
that
Troy.
bad?
No, because then I
Thanks.
could have learned and expanded.
that's okay. We can do the whole thing over again and just start like we didn't even talk for the last
Lord have
25 minutes. I'm just
mercy.
kidding. No, but I mean the interesting part about that is, you come over here from Germany, right? You get all this life experience,
Yes.
right? And then work, kids, the whole thing.
Yes.
And you think you've got an idea of where things are going to go. Kind of like this podcast, kind of like every podcast I do. It's like, I think I got an idea, but I don't really care because, like, here's the crayons. They're all wet. We have no lines to color within. Just go make art, right?
Go swim.
Go swim. Yeah, right. Yeah. Here's your crayons. Go learn to swim. What? But you make it all the way over here. You're 2000?
In 2000, I moved,
Okay,
yeah.
2000 to Florida. Okay, and which, can you say the company?
Yeah, I was
Or
with
the type of work, at least.
It was Coherent. So I was with the laser high-tech company.
Lasers?
Yeah, lasers like sharks.
Space lasers?
Oh, sharks with laser beams on their head. That's usually what I get.
Austin Powers,
That's
baby.
amazing.
That's when I talk about it.
That's amazing.
Wait,
No.
sabers? Lightsabers? Or lasers?
Lasers. So high-tech lasers for machine cutting, for semiconductors, for
So lightsaber
scientific-
lasers.
Like, I speak nerd fluently. Let's go with that.
We just became best friends.
Yeah. So high-tech got me over here, still in high-tech.
Okay.
Many years later, in Silicon Valley, after leaving, I worked for the company for 11 years.
Okay.
And I left to go to LSI, semiconductor company. We got acquired by Avago. Then I was part of an acquisition over to Intel. And now I'm with AMD.
Ooh. 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 All of my processors for all of our stuff is AMD.
Go AMD, AMD rocks.
It's I was on the AMD bandwagon before it was an AMD bandwagon.
You were AMD cool before
I
it
was
AMD
AMD cool before it was AMD
We
cool.
appreciate you.
Yeah.
We love our people.
Right? Just right there. Boom. Troy's
So-
like,
Should
I
I
don't
should
understand.
I leave? I understood lightsaber, and that was it.
Lightsaber and microprocessors.
But yeah, moving up here 3 years ago. The plan was we had moved to Oregon out of San Jose because we got outpriced with financially, just
Right.
outpaced the Bay Area. Our kids were little. My daughter almost died after birth. She had surgery at 10 weeks old. We were at Stanford and were told, hey, we won't know for the next 3 years if she's going to be fine, if she's going to develop fine. So we didn't know what our future is going to look like. We knew she couldn't go into daycare. So he's like, well, one of us can't give up their job. We're going to
Right.
be out of the Bay Area. So we had looked into living in Oregon for a while. When I worked at Intel, we came up here a lot. It
Sure.
reminded me of Germany. I felt strongly
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
a great thing.
Okay,
In terms of
all right.
no, it reminded me in terms of
Context.
context. Sorry, I'm a big outdoor person.
Okay.
Love hiking. Love anything outdoorsy. And this weather, climate, really
Very
was
similar.
Very
Yeah.
similar.
My whole family's Scotch Irish Norwegian, so it's like cool. We went from one rainy place with a lot of fish to another rainy place with a lot of fish.
Samesies, yes.
Samesies. Yeah.
So we had been talking about it for.
samesies.
Oh yeah.
She knows samesies,
I know
but I...
Mandatory training video.
Yeah. We had that conversation a while ago.
We did.
Samesies.
This is so
Samesies.
amazing. Sorry. So you moved.
Anyway,
because Oregon is Germany, we cleared that up.
We cleared that up. Or in Germany, same thing, right? So we made the decision at Izzy's bedside. She was on a BiPAP. She's 10 weeks old. I have a 2-year-old. I'm like, okay, we're leaving. Like, we're going to make what's right for the decision for our family. Moved up here. Our companies were incredible. Both companies supported our move, saying work from home, travel when you can. We support you. You're
Right.
too valuable to leave. It's like, great. So we moved up here, buy our dream home. In this incredible neighborhood, phenomenal people. We're pinching ourselves. Our daughter is doing better and better every month. We're like, we might be fine. And then, 5 months into living here, he has a seizure behind driving the wheel. We go into lunch, and I look over, and he's just shaking, unresponsive, driving.
Good times.
Great times. Able to move the car over, but yeah, just on a whim, just went to 911. Like, this person, he's not doing well. And by the time 911 came, he's walking. He's like, oh, I've been having dizzy spells for months. It's totally fine. I'm like,
Hold
don't
up.
think this
What?
is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the paramedics looked at me like I was drinking, and they're like, he didn't have a stroke. He's fine. And I go,
I watched it.
okay. So I drove him to the hospital. He wanted to get lunch. I said, can we just get a sandwich first? I'm like, yeah, it's a hard no. So yeah, we get to the ER.
Hashtag girl boss.
Hashtag girl boss.
Yeah,
He
no.
was really pissed. He's like, he really wanted a sandwich. I was like, I'm sure I'm not going to get food for the next 7 hours.
Where was the sandwich?
Oh, he really wanted to go Jimmy John's. He was a big Jimmy John's guy. So
That's a good call.
Gargantuan? They are fast. Okay, I'm just kidding.
in retrospect, and I put it in the book, in retrospect, we should have gotten the fucking sandwich. We just should have gotten the sandwich. It was probably the happiest last sandwich he had. But I didn't let him get a sandwich. We went to the ER. They did an immediate CAT scan, and the guy's running out. Like, hey, we got to talk to you. There's a giant mass in your husband's brain. And I just remember just keeling over, crying. And he gets pushed out from the CAT scan. He's like, yeah, my wife's crying. That's probably not a good sign. And I'm just like, yeah, through this whole thing, it was just step after step we're being told he's going to be fine.
Right.
And he was misdiagnosed. We're told he doesn't have cancer. And it's like, oh, no, Mayo Clinic came back saying you have cancer, but it's totally treatable. And over 3 surgeries, 30 radiation treatments, like 1 night in hospital, we were there, and it was terrible. He woke up, no recollection, and then 12 hours later had a stroke, was brain dead, and had taken him off life support. That was all a span of 5 months.
After just moving here.
Pardon my
just
French,
moving
but
here.
holy fucking shit.
Yeah.
Like,
And meanwhile, like when, he had seizures, massive seizures, so he's on seizure medication. He can't drive a car. He can't parent really, right? The location of the front right lobe, that's all where emotions are stored. So this tumor is pressing on, it's changing him as a person, which is really hard when you see someone that you
Right.
love and that person looks like the person you know and they talk like the person you know, but they start having very different behaviors. So I didn't deal with that very well. Trying to be a full-time caretaker, working a big job, basically single parenting all by myself.
With a 2 and a 4-year-old?
No, at the time,
One
15 months. Yeah, like at the time, Izzy wasn't even a year. She was like 11 months when he had a
Holy.
seizure, and Liam was 3.
Wow.
So it was a lot. And, he kept getting worse, and I couldn't understand why that
Yeah.
kept happening, because everyone along the way is like, he's going to be fine. We're just going to do all these things. And it didn't. And, a week after he died, the neurosurgeon called back saying, hey, I came back from a cancer tumor conference, and he had a glioblastoma. It was terminal the whole time. Usually glioblastoma patients live less than a year. And he said the first seizure he had was the year prior. He died in May. So the timeline-wise, it made so much more sense. And me personally, I don't want to know when I'm going to die. So I'm
Right.
happy that we didn't know.
Yeah.
But it made so much more sense after
Yeah.
the fact.
Provided a little closure too, I think.
Yeah.
Knowing.
Yes. Because not knowing, did we pick the wrong surgeon? We had conversations. Should we go to UCSF? Should we fly to Mayo Clinic? And he's like, no, let's feel comfortable with, doing it here. And I have full faith in the team, and the team was great. It's just, it's hard when you go from 40 years to seeing someone deteriorate. And I remember calling the neurosurgeon, like, hey, he's passed out in the chair. I don't know what to do. And he's like, yeah, he might be dying. You might want to bring him up. I was just like, sounds good. Let me get him in. He's 6'5", right? Like, let me get him in the car somehow and drive up. And I made the call, it's like we're at the bedside. His parents flew in, his brothers flew in, my best friend flew in to take him off life support. Shittiest day of your life, like holding the hand of someone you love that's passing. But I remember just going like, what the actual F is happening here in my life?
Yeah.
And for the coming weeks, after everyone had left, I was just going through the motions of going back to work because I couldn't just not work.
Sure.
Because also no one tells you the bills keep coming. You suddenly have a wage gap.
No, you don't just get a pause.
You don't get like oh, hey. And my company's been incredible. Like, they were just, whatever you need, we'll support you. But in general, the bills kept coming. And my number one goal was to create stability for the kids. I didn't want to sell the house. Because I'm like, this is the last decision we made as a couple.
Yeah.
The best advice I've gotten from the neurosurgeon was right after he died. He came outside, he gave me his condolences. Like, I know it's not my place. However, don't make any change for a year. Like any big life change. Just try to survive and don't make any big change for a year. But that first month, I was just every night drinking a bottle or 2 of wine, looking at pictures, crying, sobbing, and, realized at some point, I'm like, so I'm 39. I'm in a state where I don't know anybody. I have two small kids.
In an adopted country.
Yes.
Like, my goodness.
And like, there's a wage gap, a big wage gap that I've just lost.
Yeah.
I'm 100 pounds overweight. Like, now what? Like my kids, like, if I continue this route, I'm going to die and my kids are going to be orphans. They don't deserve that. This is not the person I want to be. And that was my wake-up call, like, after a month going like, all right, I better get to work.
Yeah.
And how to figure out methodically how to get back from this.
So, because one of the things that, we talk about, and kind of, usually it's in the context with, if it's Paul or Leo or Rusty or one of our first responders, just mental fitness, right? It's like, it's easy to go into a gym and do push-ups, right? It's easy to, for some people, but it's more linear, right? It's
my
more
push-up game's not that strong.
Air squats.
It has
air squats.
come a long ways.
No, I'm saying, but,
Okay.
But conceptually, it's just very linear, right? Oh, I'm going to go do 10 reps of this thing that's sitting right there.
Yeah.
The mental fitness side is completely abstract. So obviously that first month, if you could even catalog those 30 days, you probably can't, because I'm sure it's just a blur. But
it was a blur.
That turning point moment after that month where it's like, I gotta keep going. What was the first thing you did?
The first thing I started doing was, I was a competitive swimmer. I went to the pool, and I forced
do what you know.
Do what you know. Just get in. No judgment. Like, I remember looking in the mirror after he died and like, who the hell am I? Like, I used to be an athlete. I don't recognize myself anymore.
Right.
But I remember going to the pool and swimming laps, tears in my goggles, and just keep moving. As little as it is, sometimes it was 500 meters, sometimes it was 1,000 meters. It was just keep moving.
Right.
And also very quickly realized, being a mom of a 1 and a 3-year-old, physically I was not capable of taking care of them.
Right.
It's like I could barely lift my daughter up and down the stairs. And keeping up, as a single parent, like keeping up with them on the weekend. I mean, I've worked full time, great. The work days were the easy ones. It's
Sure.
the weekends when you're 24/7 on.
Yeah.
So physically, I categorized it in emotional health journey, a mental, and then the physical health journey. And for me, the physical has always been it's been more mental. Like my time I spend with Troy in the gym, the time I spend outdoors, hiking, kayaking, all the things, that's my mental healing time. That's where I meditate. That's where I kind of come back down.
The reset.
It's the reset for me. The physical journey has been incredible, right? And I very grateful I got to meet Troy and his family and his health family, because I don't think I'd be here, mentally and physically in this shape.
So, doing what you get in the pool, is your mind, I mean, a lot of people talk about different types of meditation and different ways to get around to that, right? With whether it's fitness or something physically exhausting, because you're so tired doing the thing, you can't think about the other stuff, so it's kind of it's a flush, right? I'm a weird person where I like hyper complex things to kind of calm me down, because it's like if I'm
So you build houses.
yeah, no, yes, but more in the sense, if it's lots and lots and lots of in the moment thinking, as in I can't think bigger picture about stuff, that's actually better for me. For you, when you're getting in the pool, or you were going for the you start, was it that your mind was able to clear, or was it that you were actually able to start like unpacking those things because you were hype, with the physicality, you were hyper aware of what was in between your ears?
It's both. Like,
Okay.
so for the swimming for me, it's counting laps sometimes, or if I do an acceleration set or descending, then I really just focus on executing, and I can clear my mind.
The next stroke, the next lap,
the next stroke, when am I going to pick it up, how am I going to get faster, what am I going to focus on. Out in nature, it's usually different, where I get to process.
Right.
Where I allow all the feelings to come in, and let them be, and don't judge them, don't try to fix them, just feel them and let them go, and feel them and let them go continuously.
So the pool was an escape for you, and then getting outside and hiking and being with nature was a way to
Start healing.
deal, unpack.
There was a lot of
figure
crying
out.
in the woods. Like, sure, there's a lot of hikers that saw me like, oh boy, is she okay? I'm like, I'm good. I'll get there.
So
yeah.
So you took your first steps, technically your first strokes in
Yeah.
the pool, and then starting to kind of feel like, okay, that's familiar. It's
Yeah.
controllable too, right?
It's totally controllable.
The pool is water. You can control the environment, sort of more or less. You can also control yourself in that environment. I'm trying to think how to phrase this. What was the catalyst to then step outside of that to move into something way different than the pool? Because I mean,
Great question.
that is not an aquatic creature right there. That's a
Hey,
land. That's a land
I
animal
would
that likes
kick
to
his
lift heavy
butt
things.
I
in the
can,
pool.
100%.
I can
wait.
sink really well in the water. Okay.
I cannot drown like a champion. That's what swimming's for, not drowning. But competitive swim, like, so going. I mean, because
Yeah.
and we've always joked about this too. But it's like you got swimmers, right, and you've got land mammals, and they don't
We're
always
not
cross
the
over.
same.
No, unless they're a triathlete, and then it's like whatever. But what was it that made you want to step out of the pond, literally, and jump into this? Because this is a whole other animal.
Excellent question. So I was.
Thank you.
You're like, thank you.
Once in a while, I get something right.
No, that's a great question, because it was definitely a progression of just swimming and hiking to. I started.
You
I
can
didn't
be
have
by yourself in there too, right? So
Yeah.
you are alone in that water, and you have to be out here where people can start judging you, right?
Yeah,
and that's
but
scary.
but you know what? But grief really catapulted me in the zero fucks given state. I mean,
Right.
I lost a lot of friends. Arguably, I wasn't in a kind space. I was in a very angry space. I really didn't care what anyone thought of me, of my decisions I made, of how I approached this. I was just, hey, I'm doing the absolute best I can, and it's bare minimum. I disappointed my family. I know there's milestones I've missed. There's things I've missed where I'm like, listen, I am just getting up and not killing myself. I mean, I had suicidal thoughts at the first fun. So like, I'm just surviving because I have two small kids that need their mom. They can't change their diapers. They don't deserve more bad things to happen to them. But I'm just surviving. So after the first 6 months of swimming, the school my kids went to, there's a great family who goes here, and the dad's like, hey, check out this club. They have childcare, right? You can have 2 hours on a weekend for you. And I struggled with it because I'm like, they lost their dad. There was big separation anxiety. Every time Izzy couldn't see me, she's the younger one. Every time she couldn't see me, just eye contact loss. There was tears. There was screaming. We all were going through this grieving process, but children are little, they don't know.
Well, and sometimes that happens naturally with kids too. Just that, but then to magnify that with everything else is like, how do you know what's normal and how do you know what's...
And she can't verbalize at 15 months.
Yeah, she's not even a year and a half.
Right, so she can't verbalize, so her nonverbal cues were separation anxiety. So I struggled with am I prioritizing myself for the first time to spend time away from them on the weekend? And it really helped me knowing that the kids that they go to school with, that they're friends with, would be in a kids club world. So I start coming here, and it was the best decision I made because suddenly on the weekends for Saturday and Sunday, I had 2 hours for me because I didn't have a break, really. Right. My mother-in-law was amazing. She came up once a month for like a week, and that was super helpful. But then COVID hit.
Right, and that's perfect because it's like in and amongst
it keeps all changing.
All
it
of this,
all keeps changing.
It's like, okay, here's your shit show. Now let's pour gasoline on it and light it on fire.
Right, and I had the moment of like, well, I made it through this first year, and I've already been isolated. Felt like it. So COVID came.
So you're trained.
I already know how to do isolation.
Yeah.
It was just isolation to the max. But the gym has been incredible. So fast forward, I joined this club. Yeah, and then as you said, like he threw down 100 burpee challenge, and I'm like, I used to do CrossFit, I can do this. Yeah, I was humbled. And then also that was my birthday, and he's like, hey, I'll give you a birthday workout. I'm like, sure, bring it. I'm a CrossFitter, I can do this. And I would just be here, and I was doing CrossFit moves, and I love CrossFit. But my back wasn't the best. I have an injury from when I was 27, so I was just like I was doing the same thing over and over again. But I was trying to get stronger.
Plus, you're carrying more of a person around.
Yes.
Just, physically, you have, because people don't. I don't want to be rude, but how 41? How old are you?
I'm 42.
42.
Yeah.
So, and it's that funny thing where it's like in your mind you're probably still 18. It's like, oh, I got this, right? You step out there and you're like, you do for the first.
Don't got it.
But you do for like the first few reps, and then it's like all of a sudden you get, oh, I don't got it. Oh God. Oh, things hurt. Things are not.
Yes.
Things aren't where they used to be.
And as Troy can probably attest, is that my stretching game has room for improvement, and. Yeah, so I tend to be someone, I go out hard, and that was my way to, I was CrossFitting my way until I met Troy, and Troy basically rebuilt me and said, okay, let's take a step back. You have a back injury. Let's build you back up from the core. Our main focus has been that I can be the best active mom, can't break down, physical version of myself. Right. So when I met him, I was had already lost 40 pounds, and I'm down now 110 at this point total.
That's so
I couldn't have been
awesome.
here without the help and the support, and he really gets me out of my mental hey, I have to eat this little calories. He actually get me to up my calorie game. Right. And I'm like, you're insane. I'm not eating over 2,000 calories.
Yes, but also he's correct in that respect.
Apparently you are right. I'd like to formally apologize. But no, it just, it was and I opened up to him after a while. I didn't immediately hey, hi, I'm a widow. It's always fun. It's a great icebreaker. Hi, my husband died. Cool. And for those of you who don't know Peter had a wicked sense of humor. So he would laugh at this hard.
So give us a little description of Peter, because the folks that I know very little, right? Just from actually honestly watching and reading what you've put out there. We got 7 billion people on the planet. He's one of one. Everything that I've read and seen from you, and then by proxy all the little strings that go out from there.
He was okay.
Pretty freaking awesome dude.
Yes. New Yorker at heart, born New York, raised California, and I always joked, I was like, you were 4 months old when you moved to California. It's it's in my passport, it says New York. Fuck off.
Gotta claim East Coast,
right?
Yeah.
Claiming the East Coast, always Patriots fan, which made him zero friends in general.
Patriots fan or Brady fan?
Both.
Okay. Yeah. See, we have these discussions as well.
It's rough.
Yeah.
The fact that Brady's still winning Super Bowls after he died, I'm like, oh, come on. All of his buddies that are in his fantasy league, every year they reach out to me with some good jokes. I'm like, this is still great.
Yeah.
he was introvert, very bright, very, very kind person with a rough exterior, which he didn't give two damns what anyone thought about him. He was very much authentically himself, which I always admired him, and I was very jealous. Like, I was always someone who worried about what do people think of me before he died. Like, I was very much a people pleaser when I was in my 20s and 30s, and he was just like, hey, babe, you're awesome, go do you.
Yeah.
Anyone else's opinion does really not matter. And I never really got that. I was just always looking at him. He was that person to me. He always helped others. Was always goofy, had really terrible jokes. But yeah, overall, just a really awesome person.
All dads do.
All dads do. We have
he was a great chef.
It is like training manual. It's like you got to have white New Balances, you have to have bad jokes, and you have to be able to barbecue at least. Yeah. Maybe not cook, but barbecue.
Yeah, so speaking of barbecue, so every year on his birthday, I honor him by throwing a barbecue. Yeah. Because he loved barbecue and get some IPAs, and I hate both of those, but it's not about me. And I asked my friends and family and anyone who loved him, it's like on his birthday, do something that he loves. Like he loved Beatles, he loves watching Star Wars movies, loves coffee more than anything. So like if you can do one thing that day.
That's why he married you. You realize that, right? He loves Star Wars, and you worked for a company that built lightsabers.
So what you're saying is I just got lucky to work at the right company.
No,
at
what
the
I'm
right
saying,
time.
what I'm saying is you're his
Dang.
Princess Leia to his Han Solo.
Ugh. I will never be able to forget that image now. Thank you. No, he was a really good person, and I in the beginning I joked really hard because I'm like, it arguably felt easier to die than having to survive this, and I told people it should have been me. It feels like it would be a lot easier than working through this. Yeah. And now I'm really glad I didn't, and I've got to this point in my life where it's like every time I can feel myself having a not then stellar attitude. I go, whoa, we get to do this life, and I think so many people don't. You can't know until you know. Yeah. But you have to embrace it. It's like, I might have a really crap day and things are going wrong, but I get to do this life. I get to fight with my kids sometimes. I get to have the bed night struggles, and not everyone does. And I tell the kids when they ask all the time, it's like, hey, he fought every day to be here. He went through 3 brain surgeries, which he told me after brain surgery too, like, I never want to have another surgery. Yeah. And we made him do a 3rd one because we were told it could buy him weeks.
You got to try.
You got to try. We're not giving up. So we get to do it. Good, bad, ugly.
When was the actual day that you decided semantically to change your words like that, your verbiage? Because when I first met you, and even when we first started training, we've had lots of mental setbacks and mental conversations where I tell you that it's time to uneff your mind, right? Unscrew that thing, take a step back, breathe for a second, because you're still here, and they need you. When did that change for you semantically to say, I get to do this?
Probably 2 months ago.
I get to fight with my kids. I get to be here and help wake them up. I got to experience what I experienced with Peter. I still get to honor him because that change in semantics is everything for you. You have been a different person. You walk in here like you are
like
Jessica Rabbit with her long
like a girl boss
legs. Dude, like a girl boss, for sure. Glowing, hair flowing like she's got a fan on her at all times. I'm telling you. And it has been such an amazing transformation. And it's so true. Get to do this, right? You have found a way that 90+% of the people out there haven't figured out, and that is how to be happy inside your circumstance rather than trying to figure out how to be happy with. Because we're not called to be happy with our circumstance. No. We're called to be happy inside. Find happiness inside. And you have done that, which is what happens here in this book that we'll talk about later. 2 months ago, what was it?
I don't think it was so much like...
Sorry, I didn't mean to pull a Jake podcast.
Excellent question, Troy.
That's my one. That's my one. I'm done. I can drop the mic.
There is more. Excellent question. I don't think it was so much as a clear moment where I was like, oh, this was the catapult. I think it's been the accumulation of 2 years of work. Yeah. Of continual therapy, continual grief work, continual awareness. I do Audible, right? So consuming, and then not just consuming, but putting it into action. And what I do for a living, yes, I do marketing operations, so I'm really good at operationalizing. Sure. And I look back at the last 2 years and I just operationalize you give me a task to do, I go do it. Right? That's how every aspect of my life. I'm like, all right, I have a challenge. How can I fix it? Right? I'm not someone who's very complacent, but I think it was 2 years of it just accumulating to a point where I go. I mean, it definitely helped when I hit that 100-pound weight loss moment. That was a big one where I was like, 2 years ago, I didn't know if I could ever get here. And arguably, now at 42, I'm in better shape, not just physically, obviously mentally, but physically than I ever was in my 20s.
Right.
And I don't know, it just switched. And one day I woke up and I'm like, I get to do this.
You go on vacation to Maine and you jump into a triathlon to just do the swimming portion, and you swim circles around the people there. I mean, these are things that you just don't go and do, and you are now doing those things. It's why I do what I do, right? I don't want accolades. I don't want
Good, because you're not getting any stickers.
Hold on.
Perfect.
Hold on. I strike you out the book. Okay,
no, cross me out. Cross me out. Anonymous. But like,
just seriously,
the change, how do you, what? Anonymous? J-A-K-E. Anonymous. Those are, I mean, yeah. I'm gonna start crying if I continue, so I'll stop. It is why I do what I do. You are the perfect example of that. Breaking through not just the physical barrier, because hypothetically it is the easiest part.
It all goes
together. But the mental and the emotional barrier that you have broken through is stupid.
Thank you.
It's ridiculous, and it is such an honor to be here. And why I reached out to Jake to say, you got to get this girl on. You got to talk about this book that we still haven't really talked about, Jake.
No,
because this is why we're here. This book is going to put her kids through school.
Well, and so, which is funny because I'm really good at softball, like wiffle ball, like home run derby, like throw a pitch up where I can knock it out of the park. And this, you literally threw that and made this so easy, because all I heard from you is somebody coming from a technical background.
Yes.
Hyper technical background. Nerd with all capital letters.
Nerd.
N period, E period, R period, D period, right? Hyper technical. You basically created a structure and a system for yourself to move forward and achieve not an end state like, project is done, but more just but to evolve into version 2.0. And at this point, probably 4.3, right? Much like a software system, much like a hardware evolution, you have put this structure together for yourself just to get through it, because you went back to what you know. You went to swimming, which was the physical manifestation, but then your mental in between the ears, your technical training, your work experience, everything that you're best at, and then you took all of that, and put it into a book to help people who don't know how to get from day 1 to day 30, the moment we'll call it moment after impact, right? I mean, or moment after trauma. That's your, I mean, you're gonna,
shit moment.
Yeah, or the just like,
that's my technical term for it.
or the numb, I can't Troy knows this. I'm hyperverbal, right? Like, brevity is not a strong suit of mine.
Podcasting, it should be so in your wheelhouse.
Oh, I love it.
I love
talking to people. It's so fantastic. But people know that there's something wrong with me when I stop talking, right? And it's like, okay, that's like, if I'm having an issue, I've stopped communicating, and I'm just, and you get in that state of just numbness where it's like, I can't function right now. And that, we'll call that day 1 or day 2 or whatever day that was, right? Or that first window of time.
Yeah.
But you put all of your life experience, all 42 years around the sun, multiplied by a few extra inputs that are a little bit more difficult and challenging than other people have faced. And then you wrote a how-to manual effectively on, hey, been there, done that, still going through it. This is how I got from day 1 to day 30, day 30 to year 1 to year 2, and just to, be blunt about it and not want to fucking kill myself.
Basically.
In a book.
And after every section, I have a workbook for the reader, which I share my experience. I share my methodical approach of how I operationalize this. And it's like, here's your workbook. If you feel so inclined, work through it. Methodically, as you said. So it's like it's a how-to guide, because if I can do it, anyone can.
I like the work sections in there, because then it's a buy-in from the reader also. You're not just 30,000 foot reading about somebody else's story and having to make your own little bridges and gaps. You're actually you're creating a shared experience for the reader with you, who might only ever connect with you physically by touching the pages of the book or listening to it, on an audio version, which we're gonna make happen. But the buy-in from somebody who's going to have that book in their hand and even just physically putting pen to paper to write out whatever the task is at the end of that chapter is such a huge difference from most of the other, whatever you want to call them, self-help books. It's not really self-help. This is more like, I would call this more self-empowerment, because help is where someone else does something for you, right?
Yeah,
You're basically creating,
you got to do it yourself.
Exactly.
It's a DIY book.
You don't Troy's not lifting the weights for you in the gym. You're lifting the weights. If you need a spot once in a while, he'll be there. But you're basically giving people.
They can't see me shaking my head. I will just yell louder.
That is also
pick it up, Joe.
Pick it up. But you've put this.
If you can't, you can leave.
He's never said that to me.
You can. Oh, my favorite is like, oh yeah, you can quit if you want to.
Yep.
Phil, go ahead.
Absolutely.
No, totally fine. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. People love
when
that.
When you're ready, Jules, you can go ahead and pick it up.
Damn. It hurts.
and you've created this whole structure in a book to help people with whatever type of grief it might be.
Every loss is different, right?
We talked about this last week.
You can't evaluate losses. Like,
grief
I can't put my
doesn't have
loss
to
to
be
your
widower.
loss to Troy's loss to like they're not. People always want, well, mine's worse. No, it's not.
a comparison.
And for like your kids, for example, right? Arguably, if they were 13 and 15, it might have been harder to go through.
It's a much different.
It's just different. It's not better or worse. It's just different.
And having been in plenty widower grief groups, right? It's not a comparison game. Never has been.
It shouldn't be.
It's we're just there to support each other.
We do that naturally. Everybody wants to compare stuff, and it's hard to get out of that. And that's what I really like, because I got through a big chunk of that, and I just really liked how it's like that's not any way. Just flush that, dump that shit, and
right. It's not about that. It's about, and also realizing. What I've realized when I finished the book is that loss is not just loss of a person, right? It's also, there's so many people through life go loss of divorce, loss of health, loss of job. Everything we don't understand that that's also, you have to grieve it. Right? Even though no one died, you got to grieve it and you got to let it go and you got to work through those emotions and you got to, I get to write a second chapter in my life, right? Peter was my first chapter. It was an incredible chapter. I get to do another one at some point, right? That's a gift.
Yeah.
Right? So you lose a job, and instead of looking at it as like, they never valued me and all the negative self-talk that comes with it, it's like, thank you for the experience, better is ahead. You don't know what doors are coming open because this didn't pan out.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that for humans, obviously, but
right.
I think losses all around us and how we process loss as humans, I have a whole new perspective on now. Because I was the person before that compared. I was the person that bad things happen to me.
The nice house, the nice cars, it's like it's so easy because it's so visceral and visual, and we're visual creatures.
So now my goal is inner peace. Just like the movie of Panda, Kung Fu Panda. Inner peace. I thought it was so silly, but now I was like, if
Dustin Hoffman.
If no one can messes with my unless I allow someone to intrude in my aura and how I feel about myself and what I do every day and how I help others and how I inspire others and how we lift each other up. It's my choice to allow people into my life or not, or auras or conversations, and I can just say thank you and leave it there and don't have to pick that up. Because we all meet each other where we're at in life, right? Everyone, we just mirrors to each other. We all meet each other where we're at. And if we can just hold some compassion and kindness for each other. And the other day someone's cutting us off and my son is like, well, that wasn't nice. I'm like, well, this person might have a really rough day. We don't know what happened.
Or he might have to go to the bathroom really bad.
Right. But instead of yelling, just trying to be more, I'm trying to be more aware of my reaction in life and understand that if I get triggered, I'm like, oh, let's look into that trigger.
Yeah,
why? Why am I being triggered right now? Because that person's not triggering me because they're doing something bad to me. It's just, what's my emotional state look like?
It's funny because as we sit here and we talk about this and again, not having known your husband personally, but again
he was all right.
He was a good dude.
He was a good dude.
But you talk about all these things that he was so great at, and it's now manifested itself in you, right? So everything that all the best parts and probably the worst parts of him
are me.
Are in and around and emanating through you. And I'm sure, I have no doubt, because it's like everybody else with
her children.
Well, and the kids, right? Because now you want to...
I have kids?
Which we're going to get to that because it's a whole other animal with that. But you've got the opportunity to express who he was, because you have now evolved into a big piece of that. Not that you're a different person, it's just that it's kind of like absorbing the energy,
yes,
and then it
yes,
right, and then I'm moving into this next level of
I am one with the force is with me.
Yes, see, exactly.
Midichlorian levels of this lady,
Right?
I'm telling you. I mean, whew.
We're getting there. It's, I mean, again, he probably didn't warn you well enough that it's like, hey, this guy's got nerd issues, but you've got that energy and all of his experience that is now, which I'm sure if he'd have, which it sounds like he would have just said straight out, like, oh, if you were more like you know, like, give less fucks, be, you know.
He tried to tell me that for 10 years straight.
Right. So to the point of now you get it, and now you are living it, which is presumptively all he would have ever wanted to see.
Agreed.
Because you're a more complete person and a better parent, because now you can take that with the kids and say, hey guys, yeah, this sucks, or whatever it is, you know, school project, whatever, it doesn't matter. You've got a whole other tool set.
Oh, I have such a big tool set now that I was on the treadmill the other day, and I was running, and I was grinning stupidly, and people were like, why is this lady running and smiling? And I had this big moment of like, holy crap, I wouldn't be this version of me if this hadn't happened.
Right.
I'm not saying I would want it to happen,
Right.
but I'm so proud of where we're at and how far we've come, and how
When she says she's smiling when she's around the treadmill, first off, it's not a lie. It's very true. When I come walking, now no one can see this, but when I come walking through that door over there and she's on this skill mill over here running, now she's like 7'2", okay? So she's all legs
6'1".
and long hair flowing. When she's smiling, it is radiating. So I catch her eye and she's like, it kind of gives me the high sign, and my day immediately is like, okay, this is gonna be awesome. Jules is here, she's ready to rock and roll, and that smile is infectious. It is incredible. Now, we haven't been able to see that smile for a long time.
yes, it's
Not just because of COVID,
well,
right?
3 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
but we're seeing it because, as you've written in your book, you know, you talk about, in a way, metaphorically purging your life, right? Like we have to physically purge our life in our house and teach our kids what it's like to, you know, you don't need that anymore. You have metaphorically purged a ton so that you can clean out areas that are affecting or infecting your ability to be who you are right now. When I see you smiling, I know that the purge has happened. It is unbelievable, and it's amazing.
You're making me blush. Thank you.
Well,
Well, he's not full of it either. It's just, it's things that other people can see that we're all terrible about this. It's hard to, you know, well, I shouldn't say it's hard to walk around the mirror in your face, see yourself all the time, but then cell phones and selfies and all the things that seem to be the rage with all the kids, whippersnappers. But it is hard to see, like, hey, I'm doing okay. Like, I'm doing a good job, and there's not a lot of people there to tell you that. And
especially as a single mom.
Yeah,
like, there's
and
moments where your parenting hits, and I really that's when I miss him the most. Sometimes it's the
adulting.
It's the, hey, you question yourself of the parenting decision you make and the consistency,
Yeah.
and someone else going, hey babe, you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
You're a great mom.
Yeah. Well, and that's, you know, it's funny too.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you did not interrupting at all. It takes me back to the front end of the conversation where, you know, you were saying it's like I'm going to use air quotes for this. You lost friends because of this entire thing. And I'd be like, no, they were never friends to begin with, because fuck them.
Amen.
I mean, sorry, but like I'm a little
Absolutely.
I'm a little bit of a light switch person where it's like I've got a really long fuse, but when that's gone, it's done, and I'm not emotional about it. It's just like, oh, this is too hard for you. I'm sorry for you that you aren't able to be a complete actual friend to me, you know, or whatever, or vice versa. But
Well,
it's so hard because so many people, like you said, it's like you might not be this version of you had all of the events not happened.
Yeah.
Right? Now, which version's better? Which one would, you know, yes, the easier thing would obviously have been to not have gone through that, because it was loss, and loss is never, it's never.
Don't wish it on anybody.
It's not, it doesn't feel good. I'm not going to say it's not good or bad for you, but it's just, it doesn't feel good, and people want to avoid things that don't feel good.
But the growth doesn't happen in a happy place.
Right. And so many people spend so much time trying to avoid discomfort or pain, inclusive of fitness, that they don't understand why they can't change or why they're not internally happy, and it's because they are constantly running away from things that would presumptively at least make them stronger. Not necessarily like happy, because I mean obviously you weren't happy about it, but you're stronger, you're more complete, and that scares the living shit out of people. I mean, you can see it all over the place, you know, socially across both coastlines. It's like there's so many things that it's like going on that it's exposing what people are and aren't prepared for, and a lot of people are not prepared to have that mirror in their face and really look at themselves and say, what am I doing well? Because you have to look at the things you do well too.
There's an analogy I love, is that you hold a glass of water, right, and someone bumps into you and the water spills out, and people's like, oh, the water spilled out because the person bumped into you. And I go, no, the water is what's inside of you as a human being, and when you get rattled, when life shakes you up, what's inside comes out.
Right.
So if you're angry, you'll be angry. If you're kind, you're kind.
Right.
If we're not investigating, right, if we're not investigating what our state of mind is outside of suppressing a feeling or projecting it on somebody else or being reactive to it, but just to acknowledge without judgment, this is what's going on with me right now.
Right.
And it might not be pretty. For me, it wasn't. I mean, I was very, very angry when Peter got sick. And I was mostly directed at anger at my husband because he was there and he was sick, and I was angry at the situation. I was angry. I was like, I didn't sign up for this. This is not how our life's supposed to go. And I barely recognized myself. I'm like, this is not who I am at the core.
Yeah.
It's not who I want to be. But the first steps start with self-awareness. And I think so many of us are so afraid, as you said, to take that look because we're afraid of it's not all being roses and butterflies, but we're human. We're human.
Right.
So can we give ourselves some compassion and kindness and grace ourselves and go, hey, didn't handle that so stellar today. What did I learn? What can I do better? And then let it go.
Yeah. And that's one of the things too and Troy can speak to this now as well, but there's a thing that happens when you have kids. Let me backtrack that. There's a thing that happens when you have kids and you actually give a shit about being a good parent.
Yeah.
That you are never going to get it perfectly right. There are some days you're going to crush. Like, you're going to be like, dude, parent of the year. And then there's going to be the next day where it's like, what? Why do I not have a license for this? Because I am so unqualified to be an adult or a parent right now, right? But so many people don't want to acknowledge that, one, that they fucked up, even as a parent, with their kid, or two, just straight out apologize. Because it's like, I got no problem if somebody blows it. If I blow, it's like, right, just say you're sorry. Like, you didn't mean to.
I tell my kids all the time. My nervous system shuts down. I get frustrated. I'm like, hey guys, mommy got frustrated. Here's why I got frustrated. Can you I yelled at you guys. Can you forgive me? And my 6-year-old, 3-year-old hear it all the time. And my 3-year-old's like, of course, mommy, we love you. It's cool. But I'm like, all right. And but I'm role modeling the behavior that they will be self-aware to know, like, when they're shutting down, to verbalize it.
Right. And to make corrections when you've made a mistake. Because if you I can actually hear my mom laughing right now, because I was such an overwhelming desire to have everything perfect when I was a kid, like everything, all the time.
You still do.
I do, but the difference
so what
is
has changed?
I'm not dysfunctional anymore with it, right? To where it's like just mentally, and I can use that as a little bit of a redefining of I don't need to hold perfection in a physical manifestation. It's a perceived goal to strive for that you can never attain. Right, so it's like, okay, we're gonna find the center of the universe. Okay, yeah, that's not gonna happen, but we can reach for it and keep reaching for it and keep reaching for it. And it's like, as long as you keep trying to get better, knowing that it's not something that you can actually do or become, everything else you do in the wake is positive or better version of what it could have been. And so for you to have that awareness, which may or may not have come without this, with your kids, now you've got 2 more humans that are going to go exponentially influence their circles as they get older, mobile, because they're not driving, they're not in high school, they're not out in the world yet, really, but they're going to influence their ecosystem for the rest of their lives. And now that one experience you had now multiplier exponentially with them, and then outside of their circles and outside of their circles.
That's the hope and that's the goal.
And that's the hope and the goal, right? And I mean, we see that, people are like, oh, well, what are we going to do with all the things going on? America's going to burn to the ground. No, it's not, because there's enough people like you. There's enough people like you. There's enough people like the people that I spend time with that are out there influencing their kids, other kids, in that positive capacity of like, hey, you're not going to get it perfect. You're going to screw up, but you got to own your shit, and you got to step up to the plate when you do. And we don't give up. Yeah, when you don't do well, or you do well, you have to step up, and you have to keep pushing forward. And unfortunately, for better or worse, there are millions of people in this country that aren't going to have the toolbox to do that because maybe they grow up as orphans. Maybe they grow up in a single parent household with one who is not as positive and motivated as you are, right? So now where do they go? And again, and literally this is not to sound like a pitch for a book or anything else. It's just because what you've created is so unique and is so easily consumable by somebody that might be 12 or 8 or 38 or 42. They can all speak to each other and have a shared tool set that they're going to build into their own, but it's a common language, right? And a common structure. And there might be people that read it and be like, oh, okay, that doesn't work for me. Okay, maybe not now, but it will later. And maybe it never will, but it doesn't matter because there's another 100 people behind you that are like, thank you for what you did.
And thank you for that. But especially, I wanted to touch on I purposely made it a short book. It's 50 pages. Because I remember first waves of grief, I didn't want to sign up to read a novel of someone else's story of like
480 pages.
600 pages about someone else's love life that passed them out, right? I'm like, that's not inspiring to me. So I made it purposely short. I purposely have workbooks on there. This is an easy read for a reason. But I wanted to read like this one quick section on when we talk about parenting, physical health, mental health, emotional health. It's like I said, my motto every day is like, start today, start small.
Right.
Consistency matters more than perfection. Back to that. Never ever give up. And fall in love with the process. Yep. Because one of the smartest thing a mentor of mine at work said to me, he's like, and he's a Spartan runner and he's like super fit, like stressfully super fit. He goes, think of the rest of your life as a path. And it's wellness is a path. And every day you do something to be on the path. Some days more, some days less. But this took away from me I have 100 pounds to lose in 8 months and I have to. It just got this, it became a lifestyle of like every day you don't give up. Some days you do more, some days you do less, but every day you gotta hustle. And every day I do something, small or big.
Well, and it doesn't have to be.
And not just physical, but
or emotional or a interpersonal relationship. I mean, that's work too, right? I mean, that's a life skill that your kids are gonna have, and the kids that read this book are going to have to be like, oh, right, I don't have to, I don't have to have the number one TPS report every single day. It's like, no, I can just do the job today. Yeah. Tomorrow I'll be a little bit better. Yeah. Maybe tomorrow I'm at least just the same as today, but I'm not going backwards, and again, not quitting.
Not quitting.
So hard to do. So hard to do those things. Right? I mean,
they sound simple.
They sound super simple.
They look good on slogans on the wall.
Yes, they do. They look great when the cat's hanging from the thing and saying, just hang on. I mean,
hang on, buddy.
They're like, you mentioned your perfection earlier, and it made me smile because this morning I got to be in my daughter's room while she was making her bed, changing her sheets, making her bed, and we were cleaning. And it was the hardest thing for me to just let her
do it.
And I had to step away, and I went downstairs and I looked at my wife and I said, honey, I don't know if I can do anymore. I need a break. This is because Paul, I am OCD myself. Jake, like you, I like to be perfectionist. And so to watch her struggle and watch her do those things, and it's so hard to let those things happen. And what you're doing when you're talking with your kids and you're helping them through what you're going through, and you're helping them through some of their own mistakes or their feelings when they think they've done something wrong or something to upset you, and you're having those conversations with them, is in the end, kids are the greatest things because they're like, Mommy, I love you. Of course, you're fine.
Yeah.
Like, it's so simple. It is so simple, but it's so hard for us adults to get through that, right? My daughter looks at me, Dad, look at, I made my bed, I cleaned my room, and we're having a party because the animals are hanging off this and this. And I'm like, yeah, it looks so good, honey. I'm so
crying
proud
internally.
of you. I love you, honey. I love you, Daddy. And I'm like, okay, I succeeded today, right? I mean, and what you do, like he's talking about in this book, is you have made this so easy to do. I could actually probably read 50 pages Whereas 400, that is so daunting. That is so scary and overwhelming. I don't like to read. I would rather listen to it. I could do that, but I could go through that. So like you said, 8, 12, 38, 42, 90, we all can learn something from that, and that's what the cool thing is. That's incredible.
Well, and coming out of your background too, I mean, you can't build a system without a lot of individual components and individual pieces and individual steps. And yeah, a 400-page manual or manifesto or what that's not a
by no means am I knocking anyone's memoir, right?
No,
but
obviously
what
not. Yours is just better.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, but
no, it's a different purpose. It's a different
We're not
purpose.
comparing.
Well, it's
just
also
different.
Yeah, exactly. But it's even to the point of like your first step towards coming back was go to something you know and something that's a small
Familiar, yeah.
and familiar and achievable, right? Something small, a single. I mean, you could. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Blah blah blah. Whatever. But the reality is, God damn it, it does. It's like I got to take one step before the other.
It doesn't. It starts with putting a sock on.
Actually, did start with.
Okay.
Actually, for me personally, it was
or even a manicure or a pedicure.
My underwear's going on first, just to be clear, and then socks. Because socks without underwear is kind of
Anecdotally, though, I turned 40 4 months after he passed away, and he had planned a surprise trip to Hawaii with my best friends, which we didn't go on because I'm like, that would have been too sad. So I ended up, my friends visited, and we went to Rockaway Beach. And my 4 girlfriends are there, with kids are there, and they literally, like, my best friend from Chicago looks at me, he's like, Jules, for crying out loud, it's time for you to put a bra back on. And I remember giving her so much grief about it. And now we laugh at it, right? But as you think, sometimes it was the getting dressed part. And then last year in the midst of pandemic, my son looked at me and goes, hey, Mom, you wearing the same thing every day. Why? I go, wow, called out by a 5-year-old. All right, I'm going to get some clothes and I'm going to step it up. And now every day, the self-care is infinitely grown. Yeah. The emotional self-care, the physical self-care. I make space for my friends and me. I make space.
Yeah.
And for the first time in 3 years, I'm laughing. I'm happy. I'm genuinely joyful.
Right. And that doesn't take away from the emotions of everything that happened. No. It's just that they can coexist now, whereas before they couldn't.
Yes. And I think that's the biggest lesson that I've learned is that, when something like this happens, I always thought my heart can hold one emotion or the other, happiness or sadness. Yes. And every milestone I witness my kids do, I am so proud of them to hit that milestone. And there is that grief that is so bittersweet that Peter doesn't get to see. Right? But now I'm not living in my past anymore. I'm holding space for it. I have love for it. We talk about it frequently, right? Whatever, it's open dialogue with my kids. But I'm living for the first time probably ever in today.
Yeah.
And I've always been a future planner.
And not stretching for tomorrow.
Oh God, I was always here's the next 40 years planned out. Mm-hmm. So now I'm finally living today because firsthand, no, tomorrow is not guaranteed. I make plans for tomorrow, especially financial plans, but I'm not living in anxiety of tomorrow anymore. And I'm not living in the past anymore. I'm really living in the now.
And that's a hard thing because adults get sucked into that, but yet kids are so expert at it. Like it's and not that everybody has to have kids to experience this, but it is something that changes you when, again, if you give a shit as a parent, but it's something that changes you because it's like, oh, right, especially this little person when they're 15 months old and their whole entire world is,
when do I eat again?
Eat, sleep, make potty, and then rinse, sometimes potty. Literally, and then repeat, right? And it's like, okay, so it's like having a human puppy. It's like, okay, this is just my entire existence is in the next 30 minutes of what's going in my face or what's coming out of a hole, and then what am I wearing? Am I wearing anything? Right?
Eloquently,
yeah. But kids are experts at that, right? Yeah. I mean, all the way up through, especially with grade school. That's why the pandemic's so difficult because a lot of them they don't have that opportunity because now everything's so just unknown and all this future planning and all these separations and people can't. Kids haven't had that opportunity to be able to stretch like that.
Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, if anything, hopefully the positive side coming out of the pandemic is that more adults will take that lesson from their kids of like, oh, look at them, like that they're fine. I mean, yeah, it sucks. Not taking away that it is not terrible, but at the same time, kids handle shit pretty well.
Yeah, the resilience I've seen my kids. I mean, from where we were 2 years ago to today, My kids are thriving.
Yeah.
They're functioning, making friends, great in school, doing sports, living life to the fullest. Their biggest concern at the end of the day is, oh, do I get dessert?
Right.
And can I stay up later? Can I have some tablet time?
Right.
Can I have more and more and more and more? And if that's the only issue we have, you live in a phenomenal life.
Right.
I mean, my son is like, when are we going to Hawaii? I'm like, calm down.
Pump the brakes there, Turbo.
Yeah, how about when you guys can swim?
Yeah.
But yeah, what I wanted to touch on is I think what COVID did to most of us that are not really, haven't done that work yet, is everyone's trying to have control over something that we don't have control over. And it's been amplified, and everyone has opinions about it. But again, it goes back to the water glass. Whatever's shaken out is not anyone else's responsibility than yours.
Well, and you can control you, right?
Yes.
I mean, you can control your output. You can
Yes.
control your inputs. And
Yes.
so, notwithstanding the mechanism to which, and you said it yourself, multiple glasses of wine a night, all those kind of things, calories, food is a control mechanism for a lot of people. And what have we seen in the pandemic? I love this I loved and hated it because it was kind of for those of us that have been around it enough, everybody's like, oh, this is gonna be great. We're gonna have all this time off and we're all gonna get in shape. Like, no, you're not. You're gonna sit on your ass and you're gonna do what, societally, not like any individual person, but just people at their natural state as a whole are generally pretty freaking lazy. We see that even when we don't have a pandemic. Now you've got a pandemic and everything can be delivered, and then the structure of the system is setting up to have everything delivered. It just incentivizes people
To stay more
sedentary, not do the things that are hard, not do the work that needs to be done to put themselves in a better position. And then, of course, you've got, the rest of this where you weren't open, we weren't open. It's like where you used to go to the places to do these things.
I remember the winter, right? We were shut down. We worked outside.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like 27 degrees. Yeah. We're lifting weights in rain, in hail. We're like, I don't know. We're doing it.
Yeah. And because we're doing it today, what's tomorrow? I don't know. We'll figure it out tomorrow. Are they going to open up tomorrow? I don't know. We'll figure it out.
But it's not controlling my life, right?
Right.
And, and I've learned the hard way that I'm done living in fear. There was a lot of existential fear I had the first 6 months where like every day I'm like, I'm going to die. The kids are going to die. Like I was in that negative, how can you not be, right? I'm not judging it. I was just like, I was in a very negative headspace.
And that's normal.
It'd be weird if I didn't.
It would be. You'd be a sociopath. No, like literally, like you'd be sociopathic if you didn't have that feeling.
I remember it was a neighborhood get together. Sitting, I had way more wine than I should have. The kids were asleep. I was in front of my door, and this lovely lady was like, "So, Julia, what does your husband do?" I'm like, "Well, he died." I'm like, doing great things. But I was just in that mindset of, I was drowning.
Yeah.
And coming out of it, but it starts with me taking responsibility and ownership over my body, over my thoughts, over my life.
Right.
And I think it's when you can't force anyone to do anything or change, everyone has to make that first step and make that decision that they want to change.
In the 2 years that we've really known each other and discussed conversations, had conversations about Peter, about what happened, you would break down.
Yeah.
There would be days where you would be like, oh, today, 2 years ago, or today,
all the milestones,
whatever, this happened, and you would just need a moment. And so I would give you your moment, and you'd go and walk, or you'd go and cry,
sit on the floor,
and cry and walk. No, you showed up. You didn't always work to the output that you would want, but it's fine because you were dealing with your grief in a way that you knew how before this book came about. And it happened not every day. It happened not even every week. Some weeks it was more than once. But now, and here we are now for an hour and a half, 2 hours, we're talking about Peter. We're talking about what you went through. We're talking about your 100 pounds overweight. We're talking about all this stuff. And you're sitting here proud. You're sitting here strong. Now, that doesn't mean that you've forgotten about him. That doesn't mean you're not having any of these feelings. But it is so empowering. And I hope this book is like that for somebody, because it's incredible. You are able to now deal with what you've gone through in such an incredible way. Like, you don't just go my ugly cry now because I just,
For the record, I was never an ugly crier.
No, very beautiful. Very beautiful. That was me. But you don't do it anymore. We can have conversations. We can have hard conversations, tough conversations, emotional conversations about where your kids are, about Peter looking down on you and smiling about what you have accomplished. And even just the last week, let alone the last 2 years. That is incredible.
Thank you.
And here I am, my hype man self or whatever, but like that's the journey that I get to be on with this lady. Is I didn't have to experience the death, but I felt like I experienced the death.
Yeah.
And now I'm experiencing the joy. I'm experiencing the joy after loss, hence your book. I am experiencing what this woman can actually accomplish. And her kids are actually, like she said earlier, they're not just thriving. They're infecting people with their smiles, with their ability to just have joy and mirror their mom. There's pictures she posted on Instagram yesterday about going to Lee's Farms.
Yeah.
And
That was awesome.
the kids, you would never know anything ever happened. I mean, the kids are just the happiest little pigs and poo you could ever be. It's incredible. And it's because they see mom now. They know it's okay. They can be okay to laugh and smile now because mom's okay to laugh and smile now. And that's huge. And being a dad of a little girl, I am definitely a girl dad, that is the greatest gift you can give your kids and that you can give people. That's awesome.
And thank you. There's definitely a big permission on where I struggle with is like, is it okay for me to be happy again, right? I had a whole thought process like end of last year. I'm like, is it okay for me to be happy again, right? Because there's a lot of judgment around the way widows should behave, dress, act, there's a lot of, I've encountered a lot of stigma. And I said, well, F that. I'm going to do me. And I know
I'll say it for you. Fuck that and fuck them.
Absolutely.
Like
that social baloney is ridiculous.
And I get very annoyed when random people that don't know me very well go like, Peter would want you to be happy. I'm like, well, duh. Like me and my brother-in-law. I have two brother-in-laws.
They should write a book. You could be happy.
Duh.
Really? Thanks.
I have two awesome brother-in-laws, and the older one, James and I got really closer through this loss. And we talked the other day, like I think sometime last year, and we had a really fun reminiscent moment about Peter. And James said, he's like, Jules, you know what? He'd be mostly pissed off, right? And I was like, yeah, that we're still sad. And he's like, yes, because that's not who Peter was.
Yeah.
He was a very jovial person because he had experienced. So, sidebar, at 25, he had testicular cancer. And he got first-hand experience what that fear looked like. So when I met him when he was 30, he was cancer-free. And he's like, listen, he lived every day to the fullest. And I was like, you're insane. He's like, no, we're going to open up this expensive bottle of wine tonight because we can. Fuck it. I know, like, the only regret he had is that he didn't have a second Italian beef sandwich in Chicago in 2012. That's the only regret he had.
Right.
Right? So that's how I'm going to live life moving forward.
Well, and for somebody like that, too, literally having testicular cancer, kids might not even been a possibility in his wheelhouse.
Yeah, the fact that we have two kids is incredible.
And the fact that you had a daughter that had some severe health issues, I guarantee he doesn't want anything bad to ever happen to the kids. But even just having, as stressful as I can literally imagine that was, I'm sure at the same time he's sitting there just like, but I still have them, right? They're still here. And his, testicular cancer at 25, I mean, that's young. And most of the time that ends up being on the back end of, hey, you're not going to have kids because they literally like irradiate your balls.
Yeah, he was lucky. He never had chemo.
Right. And that's, but even still, it's like, yeah. So, I mean, he learned early what some of your former friends, I don't even call them friends because fuck them, but former acquaintances obviously still haven't figured out that it's like tomorrow's not guaranteed. The next 6 hours isn't guaranteed. The next, 60 seconds probably is, but you don't know what's coming. So you better just be and to embody that. Right.
Yeah.
So in not speaking for him, but having a little bit of a pseudo similar experience, it's like when you hit that stuff when you're younger, like late teens, early 20s, it gives you perspective, but it also empties that I joke about calling it the fuck bucket, but it empties that fuck bucket pretty fast because now it's like, again, oh, well, you're struggling with my struggle? Nah, bye. Like, I don't need your judgment or your widow grief counselors, air quotes for those who are listening. It's like you don't need their input because their opinion is irrelevant. And for him to have had that at 25 is I would just presume a very large part of what turned him into who he was, which is who you fell for at 30, and then built a life with.
Yeah.
And that, again, would you ever wish that on somebody? No. Well, there's a couple people I might wish ball cancer on because whatever, but
You don't want that karma. So
I don't want that karma.
Just let it go.
I don't want
Just
that karma.
let it go.
But yeah, it's like he probably wouldn't have traded because it made him who he was to find you, right? And then to be
And arguably, it was the best thing ever happened to him.
oh, I guarantee everyone would say the same
Duh.
thing, right? Because
Duh.
well, you think of it like this, and I always try to like, you guys at the time, pre everything else, how do batteries work? Nerd, you got a positive terminal and a negative terminal, right? And in between that is a charge that provides power to provide propulsion or movement or electronics or things that go beep, right? But you have to have two opposite ends of that pole because if you have two positives, shit don't work. Battery don't work, right?
Yeah.
So that doesn't do anything.
I was incredibly lucky that we were a really good partnership.
Yeah.
Like we had 10 years. Arguably our best times have always been in crisis. Whenever crisis hit, we'd get on the same page. We would figure it out. When Izzy was in the hospital for 2 weeks, we were running shifts back and forth. We didn't see each other. Because one was always with the other kid.
Right.
He was working. And I mean, this is 7 years into marriage or 6 years into marriage, and we start text flirting like we did when we first met because we didn't see each other for 2 weeks.
Right.
We start setting up like cafeteria overlap dates. I mean, if you want to go to some sad place, go to a children's hospital and have a coffee date.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
No.
But as I said to Troy, and I have these 10 years in my bag. I know what an incredible relationship looks like. That's a gift.
Yeah.
Right? So wasn't 50, wasn't 60, but I can teach my kids what that looks like. I was very lucky to have had that.
Well, but the duration might not have been there, like
But the intensity.
But the intensity was there, right?
And the travel,
and I kind of
And
look
the
at
quality.
Yeah, and I look at things as like mileage. I talk about this, especially like fitness wise, right? And like with your back and everything else, body wise, everybody's got a set mileage. Don't know what it is, right? You could be a 200,000 mile car, you could be a 80,000 mile car. You don't know, right? And how you choose to use that mileage is up to you. If you want to burn it all up by 25, great, fire away. You're only getting so many miles. Or if you wait until you're 55 to start using that mileage. Alice, who works out at our gym, she's 82, right? Everybody's like, oh, this is amazing. Like you're and she's ridiculously fit, like crazy. But she didn't start actually training in fitness till she was 40. So now she's got 42 years in, which math. But the more to the point being, it's like there are other people that are younger than her that are way more broken down because they started earlier, right?
Yeah.
And so it's you only get the mileage you get, and how you're gonna use it, is up to you. But use as much of it as you can and as well as you can.
Without being stupid.
Because you don't want to wreck the car, right? You don't want to do the things that are dumb and the self-destructing.
But tint your windows.
Yeah,
Powder coat your wheels.
And get some big woofer speakers in the back.
I mean,
what's wrong with that?
Nothing at all. Flare, lots of flare.
I feel a little bit attacked. My Jeep has some.
No, wait till you see your Jeep.
Oh, I saw an Instagram picture. It's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
No, but the thing it's you get your mileage, use it how you want, but don't waste it either. And Peter's
you can't
mileage.
take it with you.
Right, you can't take it with you, and Peter's mileage was what it was,
and bring people along with you in that journey.
Yeah, and yours is now what it's going to be. Don't ever give up who you are for somebody else's road, right? And that's the thing that's so hard because I mean you look at everything that goes out on social media and which is it's addicting, but I think about the kids that do and don't listen to this and talk with us and the influences we have and your kids' friends and things like that. And it's so hard for them because all they see is what they see. They're victims of their environment. They don't have mobility to be able to get and move and go places and do things, right? It's like your kids are going to be great because they're yours. There's other people and other kids that are going to be in scenarios they can't move themselves out of, which again, this is a tool to help them to be able to understand like, hey, you can move past this. You can move beyond where you're at in a positive way. Yeah. But kids don't have that kind of perspective, because they
nor do they need to. That's not their job.
It's not their job, but sometimes it's reality. And if they've got a shitty parent or they got a crappy social structure, where are they going to get it from? Well, most of it's coming from a phone or a tablet or whatever. And so for me, it's hard because I look at the mental health, the mental health crisis. Adults can Google shit. They can go move their bodies into different places with a car and find answers and do things.
I feel called out on the Google things.
But in the sense of like adults have, even with the pandemic, like, oh, well, this is hard.
They used to be on periodicals and things and
Reader's Digest
and microfiche and all that before Google. People, just saying.
A library and Dewey Decimal. Yeah. But adults can go find answers if they choose to. They got to get off their ass and do it. Kids sometimes don't have the mechanism to be able to do that, and I think there's a direct correlation between that and what I think is the true mental health crisis of the young people, 18 under, 23 and under. The teen suicide rate is higher than it's ever been. You've got massive amounts of depression, anxiety, and kids are just like, it's not something they can conceptualize, contextualize, or fix on their own. And
they need the right tool.
And they also need to know that,
or a parent to give them the right tool to teach them how to use the tool.
Which is the hard, because again, your kids now are learning the right tools, right? Even when you blow up, they're learning how to fix that. But the biggest takeaway, at least for me, with you is because I've had this on my own. It's just you just can't quit. You can't just cash in and be like, I'm out, I'm done. And whether that's divorce, move to the far end of the spectrum, suicide, you just don't quit. Just get to tomorrow, or get to this afternoon, or get to the next meal. Like, just take a little
sometimes
piece.
I used to laugh at sometimes a minute at a time.
Yeah.
That's no joke. It's sometimes a minute at a time. And when I have some really, really hard days, I say out loud to me, it's like, who's the person that's gotten you through the worst day of your life? I'm like, me.
You.
Who's the person that every night goes to sleep with me? Me. I'm the only person that's been with me for 42 years of my life. I've made it through every single day. I remind myself holding his hand when he died for 2.5 hours is the worst 2.5 hours of my life, and how terrible that was. And if you told me 2 years ago I'd be here today, I would have slapped you.
Right.
I would have knocked you out and said, fuck you.
Yeah.
And here I am 2 years later, for the first time for the last 2 months, like experiencing just joy coming out of myself, not because of an external circumstance, not because I'm in a relationship with someone, just of who I've become.
Right.
And what drives me and what I appreciate, and my gratitude list. And every morning I start my day with a gratitude list. When I see or feel like I'm not feeling great, I do an immediate gratitude list of like 6 things.
Being an opportunistic optimist, as I am, and I am, glass way more than half full than ever anything else, could that last 2.5 hours inversely been the greatest 2.5 hours?
No.
Not at all.
No.
Okay.
No.
Interesting. I went through it with my grandma.
Yeah.
And I would say very similarly to you, because not only did I hold her as she left, I then had to drive away and watch her get zipped up in her bag. And I would say that those moments, that 2 hours or so, was definitely not the greatest, but what I had to do the rest of that day to honor her and to get through that was arguably one of the best moments, because it helped shape my path that you talked about with your mentor. It paved it a little bit more, instead of having to figure out which one to take or what rock to step on.
I think, for us at the time, for me and his family, it was such a shock that he had a sandwich and he had a stroke and he was brain dead, right? So we were not mentally ready to accept the fact that he was dying. And when a healthy 42-year-old's his body was 42 and healthy, his brain was dead. So seeing that struggle was really, really difficult. And then I remember us standing there, like, I had to go up to a nurse and be like, I need some guidance here. Like, there's a dead person there. What do I do? Like, I need someone to, and then like, you just leave when you're ready. I'm like, are you ever ready to leave this room? His mom's standing there. Both of us were like, we're not ready. And then you go home to an empty house and you have to tell your kids the dad died. Like, no. Shittiest day of my life. And I couldn't, the kids were already in bed by the time we got home. And I told Liam the next day, and I'll never forget, I told him in the backyard, we were digging, and Liam made it so easy on me. I was like walking him through. It's like, hey, do you know where Dad is? Like, Dad's in the hospital because of the brain boo-boo. I'm like, what does the brain do? And he's like, the brain controls the body. I'm like, yeah. Hey, Daddy's brain didn't work so well. He looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Did Daddy die?" And I'm lost it. And then took his hands on my face and said, "It's gonna be okay, Mom." And I'm like, how is a 3-year-old guiding me through this conversation that I'm supposed to have with him? And that's the exact spot where I planted a willow tree last year with some of his ashes, so the tree, aka Peter, gets to grow with the kids, and they refer to it as a daddy tree, and they talk to it all the time. But yeah, that day, I still struggle with that day. It's a rough day. And I'll probably always struggle with that day, and I should, because if I didn't love him, then I wouldn't struggle with it.
Well, and that's the important thing too, is that people will want to try to put it behind them, and it's like, no, because it's like trying to leave a piece of your body behind. It's like it's now it's you. It's who you are, and to the point of, every night you go to bed with you. You wake up with you. You do the.
I'm responsible
parenting.
for my own happiness. No one else is.
Right, and that if you try to compartmentalize or put it in a box and stuff it away, it's like that's worse. I mean, this is my opinion, which doesn't mean shit, but that to me is considerably worse, because now you're ignoring the influence that it had, and not using it to empower the decisions that you make moving forward, to where, again, I can only imagine, because you can't prove it, but that he would be kind of like I told you so, in the sense of,
there's been a lot of told you so.
Because now you're parenting and processing things more like he did, where that was your biggest struggle beforehand, and now that you've, again, the energy side, right? It's like, now that that's a part of you, you're a better mom because of it, and not because you're ignoring it or you're trying to just eject it. And that's a hard thing, because people want to just, well, that's the thing. It's like people want to do the easy thing, which sometimes is just like, no, I just throw it away, just leave it and put it away, or like you said, putting your happiness into like the new person or the new relationship. And the reality is,
it doesn't work.
It's window dressing, and it doesn't work, and eventually it's going to come back and get you, and do the work now.
It's funny, I had a widower reach out yesterday, and he shared like, hey, I met someone, but it's bringing up all these triggers, and I was like, hey, gotta be really honest with you. I was like, I asked him, I was like, how's the grief journey going? He's like, this is what's going on. I was like, you gotta work on yourself.
Yeah.
Like, no person's gonna fix this.
Yeah.
And I don't think, he's like, by no means ready to date. Like,
Yeah.
You need to go do the work. And he's like, that sounds like too much work. Like, well, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, not every day has to be a PR either. It's like, hey, go do something just mindless and fun, for lack of a better adjective.
Yeah, and I'm not saying go crunch on this workbook and come out in a month and you're healed. That's not the point.
No.
But I think I came out a more compassionate human being. And for that, I'm damn proud, because hurt people, as a lot of people doing things because they're hurting on the, inside. And I've learned how to embrace it with love and kindness and let it go. And I always, instead of people saying, oh, you're moving on, I'm like, no, you move forward.
Yeah.
I think Nora McNerney said that for the first time. It's like, you move forward with all that history, with all that love and heart. You move forward and you bring that into the next experience, whatever that life is.
Because it's with you. It's not
with you. And it needs to be with you.
Yeah. So speaking of moving forward.
Yes.
This is book 1. 50 pages. Very small. For easy consumability.
Yes, on purpose.
And I know you're not the big planner for long term, but what is next?
It's a good question. I don't know what's next. For me, really, I want to ensure that I'm available to help people go through grief. I have a website, julialawson.com. If there's anyone out there that wants to talk about it, get started on their journey, get on there, contact me. I'm here to help.
And you're on Instagram too?
Yes, under Grief Girl Boss.
Grief Girl Boss. 3 simple words.
GGB.
GGB.
You crushed it. You are an awesome human. I am super lucky that Troy's my friend and was, hey, dude, let's do this, because it's just purely selfishly, like, this is fantastic for me. And, that's...
I really appreciate the invite and allowing me to share some of my journey.
Yeah, no, and this is not the last time. This is just the first time sitting down like this.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Okay,
no,
book 2 coming out.
You did great, right? Yeah. Part 2. Well, but I mean, facetiously, but you're going to get to another stage here, and it's going to be like, oh, here's some new tools that I have. Let me share those tools, right? Because this is going to get you through a certain phase and to a certain stage and a level of processing. And then
what's next is continuous growth, right?
5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. the kids are going to have him, it's and that's the other thing too, is like when they're able to start articulating a little more, there's going to be things that you're like, that would be really good to share with people too, because we haven't been kids in a long time. Might act like a child, but
Hey, why are you both looking at me?
we were looking at each other, just to be clear on
okay.
that.
Fair. All right.
Sorry.
But I can guarantee there's going to be some things that come out of this and that process with the kids that you're going to want to, because now you've built this structure and put this tool out there. It's going to be something to expand upon, because it's super helpful. I mean, I really do wish, or I should say, I hope for everybody that is in your gravity to engage with this book, even if it's not anything super complicated. Just grief can take any kind of. I mean, I know people that, that they have no kids, they're saying, or they're married or whatever, and their dog dies and they can't process. And it's like, well, I understand that, because generally speaking, I like dogs more than people, but I can fully understand
so
that.
much.
Oh yeah, just talk to my wife. It's she's like, yeah, there's a list, and the dogs are much higher than a lot of the humans I know. But it's one of those things. It's like, for them, it's their right. I mean, it's their experience, their it's not a value judgment of yours is harder, mine's harder, or whatever. It's not a comparison.
Every loss is different.
But the way that you can go about handling it to where you're not you're no longer destructive to yourself, but constructive, is huge. And that's, at least for me with this, super important, because we talk about fitness and it's easy linear. I shouldn't say easy, but it's linear to be like, cool, Troy, I need to lose 100 pounds, or I need to gain 16 pounds, or I need to do whatever. It's like, what's the workout for that? Oh, here's the things, do the reps, here's your 8-week that's very linear and very 1 and 0. There's not a lot of,
but the mental fortitude that goes into actually executing it is so complex.
Executing that, and then also the mental fitness side, right? It that does not come with a manual, and every individual person is different, and you're really good at that. I watch the diversity of types of people that come through here. It's staggering how so many different people can end up physically in the same place, but mentally nowhere near each other, right?
Sure.
And that's a hard thing, because we just
truth.
don't. I mean, it's like, yeah, hey, you want to go get fit? This is a Concept 2 rower or the Concept 2 skier. Go do a 2K twice a day, every day for 6 months. You'll be super fit. You want to fix your mental.
Sounds like an awesome
It
workout.
sounds terrible.
I want to do that.
Oh, bad ideas. But mental fitness wise, there is no, just go buy this piece of equipment, right? What we end up doing with it is like, especially in this country and culture, it's like, I'm going to go, eat, or, use some kind of control mechanism that is totally not helping you process.
It's suppressing the emotion. And
Right.
what most people do, it's subconscious, not even an actual.
They don't even know.
It's a subconscious, and 80% of what we think subconsciously, how we act, it drives us.
And it's not their fault.
No.
That's why I was really excited about this, because the book is, it's a massive step in the direction of, I got a rower next to me here, I got a skier over there, I got kettlebells, I got dumbbells, I got barbells, I got all these tools out here for like getting jacked and big glutes, which is my goal, just to have glutes like Troy. But they're spectacular, just everybody that doesn't realize. But this is one of the tools that now can go into the in between the ear space of like, okay, cool, I've got some other things, especially for me. It's like I've got other people and things that I use on that front. But
Jules, prior to sorry, I'm going to interrupt real fast. Prior to writing this book, which had to be cathartic in itself, what did you do? Where did you go? What did you look at? What did you research? Like, there's not a grief class in college you can take.
Yeah.
There's
How'd you build this tool? Actually,
that's
a great question, Troy.
How did I build this tool? I think there is.
Who told you to write things down? Who told you to write a book?
No one did. So I started journaling because I tend to be an overthinker, and I've noticed that if I just write my thoughts down, they get out of my head onto paper. So usually when I hike, I carry a journal with me. When I get to the top, I sit down and I take a moment to just write what I think, write my goals, write where I want to work on, and just write it all out. And that started the journaling process. Then I started reading Option B by Sheryl Sandberg. She is the CEO of Facebook, who lost her husband. I've read so many different books, and I have a resource guide in the back. And it just triggered me to, okay, well, I enjoy Audible. I enjoy when I consume the content when I work out, and I learn something new, and I learn how I started meditation this year. I don't think I've mentioned it, but I'm on month 10 of every day meditating and really understanding how the brain works, how do our thought patterns work, how does our emotion attach to it, how to let things go. And so I really started working on myself, I guess, obviously, and then put it together saying, oh, well, this really works for me. Like, this tool really works for me. This tool, not so much. And so I wrote this in 2 weeks, which is still crazy. At night, after work, I sat down and I wrote it in 2 weeks. It just poured out of me. So I feel like it was ready for a long time because I was living the process.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is I had 5 people in 1 month come to me, go, a friend of mine's husband died, a friend of my wife died, a friend of mine, can I give them your phone number? It's like, you can always give out my phone number, but no widower is going to call you in the middle of the depth of grief, right? You don't call a stranger and be like, hi,
Right.
I'm falling apart. So it's like, what else can I do instead of my phone number that would be more useful? And it's like, I guess I'm going to write a book. I'm not a writer. English is my second language, right? I'm like, I don't know who I think I am, but I'm going to write it down. And I got some great beta readers. I went and gave it to widowers and widows, some really good friends, and they provided feedback, and I sent it to an editor and made sure I didn't get laughed at as this gets
So
published.
how do I find this book? Because I'm not the one that's going to go be super resourceful and be like, oh, I'm going to Google this and find this, and I'm going to read this book to find this book to find this book. How do I find GGB? I'm just going to keep it at that
You
because
can
either
either
way
go
I'm
on
right.
julialawson.com. I have it linked there.
Okay.
JuliaLawson.com.
JuliaLawson.
She's Lawsome.
She's awesome.
I will ask if maybe you can link it
Oh,
to the podcast.
no. This will for sure be in the show notes, and it'll be.
It's on
we'll have it
Amazon,
on, yeah.
right? You just go Google
Okay.
Grief Girl Boss, but I think the easiest way, just go on my website, julialawson.com. You find it there. You can get some merch. For everything that merch gets sold, I'll donate to cancer research so we can raise some
Awesome.
money for other people that are going through this. And most importantly, right, you want to get in touch, you need help, you need someone to bounce things off of, just reach out on my website, and I'm here to help.
You rock.
So cool.
You're literally
She's
a rock
awesome.
star. Yeah, it's seriously awesome. This was so fantastic. Thank you.
No, thank you so much.
I mean, this was great, and I'm sure this is just the first of many.
Oh, and also what's next is this an Audible version.
yes,
I
we're
was
gonna.
promised.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about. You've got too good of a voice to not have that inaudible for your.
Thank you so much.
She goes full on radio mode.
Oh boy.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Awesome. Thank
Can
you
you
guys.
speak
And
in
to all a
German?
good night.
Did I tell you Julia was an inspiration or what? With everything she's gone through and everywhere she's going, she's just someone you want to stay connected to and root for, right? How she's set to task on rebuilding her life and the life for her kids is absolutely remarkable, and I'm just so thankful she gave me the time and opportunity to sit down with her and learn from her firsthand. And also huge thanks to my friend Troy, T. Roy, as well, for providing the space and the time and connection to bring her story to the forefront. As always, thank you too for listening. If it wasn't for you, there would be no podcast, no topics to discuss, or platform to share information or experiences like this with. This literally cannot happen without you. And if you'd like to help make it better, please share a review or comment wherever you listen or watch. It's super helpful. If you have a question or topic, or even a person you want discussed or to sit down with us, let us know. If you want to help us grow the discussion in the audience, please like and share this or any of the episodes with your friends or whomever you think might benefit from it, and we'll set to task on making it better every single week. Thanks again for taking the time, and we will see you next Monday. Bye.